Hello, friends. Welcome to Experience Data Talk, a show featuring data science leaders and technologists from around the world. My name is Mike Delgado, and this is episode number 125. Today, we're chatting with Angela Baltes about the importance of continual education, reskilling, and upskilling to thrive in a data science career. We talk with her about her unconventional path that led her into working in data science, which includes 2 master's degrees and now finishing up a PhD in Biomedical Informatics from Rutgers University. Angela began her career in health data environments where she provided data-driven solutions and insights to improve patient outcomes. She now works at the University of New Mexico as an institutional researcher specializing in machine learning, data analysis, and creating effective visualizations to aid in transparency and leveraging actionable data. In today's chat, we learned about her fascinating journey from studying criminology and her desire to work for the FBI to earning 2 graduate degrees in both public administration and information technology, which led her to fall in love with data science and eventually joining the PhD program at Rutgers. Her passion for data science, her love of analytics, and constant curiosity and desire to keep learning is absolutely inspiring, and I'm grateful to have her on the show. Here's our conversation. Angela Baltes, welcome to Data Talk.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, let me be the first to call you Dr. Angela Baltes. The amount of work involved to get a PhD is huge. So
Yes.
Congratulations for doing all of that work. And then on top of that, you're now having to finalize your final thesis and now defend it.
Yes, that's where I'm at.
Wow.
And I worked. I never stopped working during any of my degrees. So I've learned how to balance education and academic career. My academic and professional career. It's been challenging, but for me, it wasn't a choice. I needed to continue to work.
Because I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I saw just your extensive academic background in a variety of fields. You got your undergraduate degree in criminology, and then your master's degree in public administration, and then you went back to school to get another master's in information technology.
Yes.
And then you're now finishing up this PhD in biomedical informatics. And I noticed that you're constantly taking courses on data science, programming languages through Coursera. I mean, when I was looking at your profile, I was like, Angela loves learning.
I love it. I love to learn, and I love applying it. So now that I'm working for the university where I graduated, we are always applying new methods and trying to derive more value from our data. So it's so much fun, and the industry is moving quickly. So I'm not in one of those fields where you could just learn something and then you're great for the rest of your career. You have to constantly keep your skills fresh.
Yeah, it's funny because when I did my undergraduate work, and I was in humanities, so I took one course in programming and I got scared away. And mathematics and sciences were not my strength. Even I was very interested, especially in the sciences, but I just never did well in those courses. So the only thing I could do was read. So I spent a lot of time reading. I got my degree in English Lit. But when I finished my degree back then, I felt like, oh, I'm done. I'm finally done with school. Now I can get on with my career. And boy, was I wrong. That was not the right mindset.
Yeah, it's I wonder what fields in which you can really do that in, where after you get your degree, now you're set for the rest of your life. You don't have to read anything else. You don't have to learn anything else. So with data science, there's always something new. Other people are doing different things. You want to see how they're solving their data issues, how they're deriving insight from data. And so what's great is I love what I do. So it kind of keeps me motivated to keep learning. Otherwise, I think I would have burned out a long time ago.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because when I was looking at all the things that you do, working full time, being in an intensive PhD program in biomedical informatics, and then you're also, I saw, doing volunteer work, and then also you have life going on in the background.
Yes, right? But I don't really share.
And so yeah, you have like all these things going on. I'm kind of curious, like, how do you kind of manage the work-life balance?
Well, that is a good question. So at the end of my workday, I say, okay, uh, put the computer aside, spend time with my husband. I'll probably take an hour out of my evening to learn and read when he's like playing. So what's cool is that he's a gamer, and so he'll do his gaming thing. That's when I do a lot of this stuff. So I, in a way, I kind of fit things around our regular life.
And how do you kind of stay energized? Because it's really easy, especially like I know, going to school, especially you getting your PhD, like all the intense academic work, the writing, the critical thinking that's involved, and then you still have work projects and things that are drawing your attention away to work and the stress that work brings. What kind of keeps you energized? I'm kind of curious, like, are there things that you do that help you kind of stay energized and focused?
Oh, I see. Yeah, so exercise really helps. And when I can't get in a workout, we take walks, we go on hikes. Good diet, trying to lay off of the cheeseburgers and pizza. Because for me, those foods are like my study and reading foods, but I don't feel as great when I keep eating them, for days on end. So I try to be mindful of my diet, try to fit in workouts. Also, I try not to get too involved with things and people that drain me. So I'm just very mindful of what I have going on in my life and who's in it, really. So the wrong people kind of zap my energy. But luckily, I have my good circle, and they're just very supportive. And just taking good care of yourself, taking breaks are like very important when you work in maybe any field, but data science especially when you're because I have the tendency to really churn on problems. If I can't solve it, it bothers me. But I found that just putting aside, walk away, come back to it the next day, solved.
Mm.
So knowing your limit, I know exactly when my limit is, and if I go past that, I do burn out.
Well, I like that your mentality of like if there's a problem you can't solve, instead of just dwelling and getting frustrated, just like I need to step away and maybe just taking a break, I'll get a renewed perspective on it.
Yes, taking breaks for me has been probably the healthiest technique that I've applied to my life, especially working in this field. It's you come back refreshed. You have, like you said, a renewed perspective, and you're not hitting that point where you're burning out every day. And you can, for me, I can feel it. Like I've hit that point in which I'm not doing anything productive, and this feels like I'm harming myself now.
Yeah, just this week I got an email that addressed something that I needed to respond to, and now that I'm working at home, my wife's here, so I had my wife come over and I said, "Sweetie, can you read this?" Because I'm like having some trouble, like how to respond in a caring, compassionate way on this very difficult
Uh,
situation. And I had her read it, and it's so good being at home because my wife's like, "Don't respond right now. You need to take a break. Like walk away. Like don't respond today. You don't have to respond today." And I was like, "Okay." So I was like really happy to have her guidance
yeah,
because she was like, and so I didn't. So I didn't respond. I felt better. I was like, "Yeah, I don't need to respond right away." And this takes time to think about before I move forward. And just taking that break was so good. And then I came back feeling not as agitated and like a little bit refreshed. And then I
yeah,
was able to answer it in a thoughtful, more caring way.
yeah. That's the thing for me. It's like, okay, I just need to take a break. Go have a snack. Don't turn on the news
Yeah.
because that actually just woo. There's way too much happening in this world. Just do something enjoyable. Read a little bit. Take a walk around the block. Um, just play with your cats or your dog, something kind of nice for a few minutes, come back, it's like, okay, now I'm ready to jump back into this.
Yeah, I've been finding like you said, exercise has been really important. Like I also like going on hikes with my family, and I find that to be very refreshing, just to be outside. And I'm very privileged to live in an area where we have trails that I can just go to. And I
Yeah.
think for me, like being outside is important for my own mental health.
What part of California are you in?
I'm in the Fullerton area, so Orange County.
Oh, okay. I used to live in, the LA area for a few years. And getting access to trails was hard, at least where I was. And then you have to drive over there, sit in traffic. But here, where I'm in Albuquerque, we live just like a few moments away from a major park. And so trails are everywhere, and you see a lot of people out hiking, walking their dogs. It's really, really nice. I recommend if you can get outside, please get outside.
Yeah, that's where did you live when you were in LA?
I lived in Glendale and Northridge,
Okay.
so
Well,
it was a nice area, but traffic. If you leave those areas and you sit in traffic, the traffic kind of drained me.
And when you were out here, is that when you were in your master's program?
It
Uh,
was when I was I'm sorry, going to school at Azusa Pacific University. So lived in Glendale, went to school in Azusa.
oh, what was that commute like?
Um, it wasn't that bad. Coming back was a little rough, especially if it was like 5 p.m. But going to Azusa wasn't terrible if you were going in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
It was a hybrid program, so some of our work was online. So we didn't need to be on campus. So if traffic was especially bad, I could just turn in assignments online.
Oh, that's cool. What's your thoughts on? I mean, I feel like right now, obviously, most people are all taking classes online because we can't
Yes.
be in the classroom with social distancing. And there are so many amazing courses you can take online and save so much time from having to do those commutes and then the walking on campus to get to the classroom. Like you can save so much time right there. But the difficulty is I love the classroom setting. Like I love like being in a classroom, having the interaction with other students and the teacher. So online education is harder for me. Like when I take online courses, like I don't feel like as engaged. I was kind of curious,
Right.
like your thoughts on online education.
Well, I do have. I've been involved in online education probably since 2008, maybe 2009, and I feel that I enjoy online education. It fits my personality and my style. I'm a little bit more introverted. I work well alone. But I do see the value in having a classroom with other students because you get to ask questions right on the spot. You can, like you said, interact with the instructor. So that is missing from online education. So I think that it's great for certain things, and for certain people, but I don't think it's a one size fits all. And there's probably some subjects where it doesn't work well for it all. For data science, it's great. For the type of work that we do, especially at UNM in our department, it's worked out very well. And we've been working remotely since March, and I feel that I've been more productive. So I suppose online education and remote work situations are great for certain situations, certain people. But I know there's people that have really struggled with it, and my husband is one of those people. He did not like online education, and he did not like working from home. He said he really needs to be around the other engineers. He needs to ask the questions. He needs to be in the lab, and so I love online education, but I also recognize there are some cons associated with it.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that, as we've all started working from home over the last 3 months, there are certain teams that I think have been thriving. And I work on the social media side, so my team, like, we're very comfortable just working alone by ourselves and in front of our computers, and I think we feel extremely productive right now. I do miss the hallway conversations, but as far as a productivity standpoint, like there's no distractions, like except when I walk outside this room.
Yeah. And so, like right now, my husband's at home, and so I have to just tell him, okay, I'm closing the door, I'm working. Otherwise, he'll probably, hey, check this out, and look what I did, and things like that. But I love my team, but working in an office with other team members, it can be pretty distracting. So hands down, I've been way more productive at home. No distractions. I can put on headphones, no noise. I have this nice window in front of me where we sit in our office. There's no window. So I'm like, and I can just walk outside. It's just, I like this.
Yeah, I do too. I had a hard time in the very beginning. I was struggling in the very beginning with remote working because I didn't have a proper setup, and I was just working off my laptop, and I felt like I was really slow because I was so used to having external monitors, external
Oh,
keyboard, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like at my kitchen table with my wife, and I'm like huddled over this little keyboard. I'm like, it's really hard for me to like get anything done fast. And so once I ended up getting an external monitor and a keyboard and my external mouse, like I was feeling so much more comfortable and moving faster. And then also with remote working, like being able to like get up when you want. Like I get up early, so I'm like,
mhm.
oh, I can get so much work done early in the day before even my team's awake, and that's been
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So and also I had a setup because I've been a student for so long. I already had an office, my comfy chair, got all my books. So basically, I just like relocated offices. Is all I did.
I love that. I love that your husband's a gamer. My son's a gamer, so I'm actually using his chair, his
Oh,
gaming chair.
super comfortable and it can recline, right?
That's right. It reclines back. My son was like, "Yeah, just use my gaming chair for work." I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I don't want to." Like, no, no, use it. I'm like, "Okay."
You probably don't regret it. It looks super comfortable.
It's super comfortable. I love it. So, Angela, how I found you was I was on LinkedIn and I ran across an article that you wrote around, I think it was called Your Unconventional Journey to Data Science and Analytics. And for those listening to the podcast, definitely look up Angela's article on this because I loved how you shared your journey. Um, and I would love to just ask you a little bit about your article because you started off
Absolutely.
talking about criminology, and like your original interest early in life was like working in criminology, maybe for the FBI. Like that was something you were very fascinated by. And I'm curious about what originally drew you, for a 4-year program in criminology, and what did you want to do after that originally?
Well, what drew me originally to criminology is I love the idea of investigation, to digging in deep. I had that nature already. I love to dig. I love to find answers. Like pull a string and what will you find? And so I grew up as an X-Files fan, and I thought criminology should be a great way for me to do investigations and be involved in that process. And so I started that degree program. I learned a lot about other things like sociology and just not necessarily criminal investigations. I think that's what I was expecting, like forensic science or something. That was
Yeah.
part of that program, but I just learned a lot about deviant behavior, why things happen, um, also the racial and societal structural issues in our country in a way and how it plays into crime. So it was like a new way of thinking about things. And me being as young as I was like, wow, never
Mm.
thought of it that way. And then there was a portion of like the capstone, the last 2 courses was very heavy statistics and also how to analyze data. First time
Mm.
I analyzed data was like in 2007.
Oh,
So for
wow.
me, that was where data analysis started, but it wasn't hyped up. It wasn't something people were talking about. There weren't buzzwords around it. And so in that article, I talked about each of my degree programs and how each skill built upon one another before I got to this career field of data science. Because I think that data science pulls from different disciplines. Because it's not just math and not just machine learning. It's like you need to know how to present. You need to know how to collaborate. You need to know how to do your own research because you have to do a lot of self-learning. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time on the internet searching for things. Like for instance, I'm using Tableau with TabPy to build a model, and needed to look that up. Never done it before. So yeah, criminology was my first start. The very, very first start.
Sometimes a path after criminology is to maybe work in the police force or move into some sort of investigation type role. When you finish your degree program, because that's a lot of work to get your bachelor's degree in criminology, what was your next kind of step as far as career-wise? What were you thinking, especially as you got a taste of the analytics part of it?
Well, you know what is funny? I wasn't really thinking about it too hard. It was like 24-year-old me was like not thinking that much about what my future was looking like. I just wanted to do something. I was approached by the FBI and I tested for the special agent exam, but I didn't pass. So I tested twice and didn't pass. So I thought, okay, FBI maybe isn't for me. So I just kind of sat for an examination to be a criminal. They call it a criminologist for, I believe, the Los Angeles Police Department, and that room was literally filled with 75 other people taking the same test.
Wow.
So I looked around and thought, there's no way. So yeah, and it was asking a lot of data analysis questions. It wasn't necessarily any of the things I learned, but how would you analyze this? And you see this hot spot here. How would you interpret this? So I didn't have that. I think that was actually geared towards someone that was already working in that particular field at that time. So competition was pretty stiff. Steep. When I finished my degree, I thought that I was going to be doing something cool and interesting, and it just seemed like there must have been a lot of other people that had the same degree because there was one opening, and I think they get flooded with applicants. So I wasn't sure after some point. I just decided, well, maybe this isn't the path for me, but I still have those skill sets that I was taking with me, but I knew I needed to really, build upon them because being 24, I think that I was just really green. I needed like solid work experience, and specialized in a way. So that's when I decided to pursue public administration. So I think I can work in state and local government. And that was also heavy analysis because the different element of it is that now you're reading papers, you're reading other people's work, and you're interpreting it. So, and also it was working with groups, something I had very little exposure to. So learning how to work with other people was a large part of that program, which was extremely helpful for me because data science is very collaborative.
And I love that because sometimes you think about data science as being you alone with a computer, but a big part of the analysis and the sharing the insights is like you have to work with a team, and you have to also be able to present those insights in a way that's going to make sense to your audience.
Exactly. And I learned a lot about presenting in the public administration program. I was terrified to present. That was an absolute weakness of mine. Getting up in front of a class of 60 people and you're presenting your work. But that was something I took from that program and I use it now. I present to people, present to C-level executives.
I love that. And that's actually, that's something that we're always working on. Like, how do we better communicate? how do we shift our tone and our message for the different audiences we're talking with. And when I'm on LinkedIn, I'll see courses that are offered, like how to talk to the C-suite, because there's a skill set there.
That is a skill set. People misunderstand how much how challenging it can be to tailor your presentation to your audience. You can't just get up there and you want to go into the details of how you did this, but not everyone's interested in those details. So you have to really tailor, you have to present correctly to your audience, and it has to be impactful for them.
What is your advice for those young data scientists, or those data scientists that are looking to move into leadership roles? And part of that process is presenting and getting comfortable presenting to executives and the C-suite. What advice do you have for them as they're preparing, maybe for the first time? I need to go present my work to some people who are very influential in the business, and I want to make sure that I'm not getting too much into the weeds, but sharing the information that the leadership's going to need to help make a decision.
I highly recommend Toastmasters. If you have a local chapter of Toastmasters, join. It is worth your while, because then other people can critique how you present. And you do things that you may not even realize you're doing. Like for me, I would say every other word, or I'd look down. Yeah, I was very uncomfortable presenting. Toastmasters is something that you'll have a helpful group of people really giving you great suggestions on how to present.
That's really good advice, because that practice and getting that feedback is super helpful, especially for those. I mean, we all have blind spots, and we need
Yes.
people share, hey, did you know you're doing this when you talk? And that's kind of distracting.
Yes. Yeah, I highly recommend Toastmasters. It's a great investment.
I have found, just been doing a podcast, that I'm very critical of myself, and so when I listen to my own words, I found part of my work has been, because I haven't been doing Toastmasters, but just driving in my car, I would just record myself talking about a subject, and then the painful part would be to listen to myself talk about that subject, and I would
Yeah.
just, what am I doing? And I could just hear all my ums and my mistakes along the way. But I found, just by practicing that, talking out loud, and then listening back, which is painful, I've been getting better at it. But I think your point about doing it for real in front of other people, that's where you're going to hear even more feedback, because you're going to hear things that you don't hear in yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing. And from I think an objective crowd. So that I think Toastmasters is great. Practicing with others if you can, but if you practice with your friends, maybe they don't want to tell you certain things. I don't know. I haven't tried that.
So I'm curious, as you have prepared in the past to talk with leadership about the work you've done, are there things that you have learned along the way, things that maybe mistakes you've made when talking with leadership, that you're like, okay, going forward, I'm going to try to avoid doing that thing? Because I know for me, getting in the weeds, I do that all the time, and I have to stop myself from getting too specific about things. Even my emails to leaders sometimes, I'm writing a chapter of a book. I do not need to be writing that much detail. No one has time for that. I care about it at that detail, but leadership doesn't need to get that much in the weeds.
Right. So things I've learned, making the presentation actionable. There needs to be recommendations, because they're looking for those. Okay, what should we do? You've presented these facts. Now what are our next steps? Also, when you're presenting, you need to make eye contact with the room. Spend a few seconds looking at each person, because leadership may want to engage, interact, or share their own points. So I had the tendency to have my laptop in front of me and just stare at the laptop and go through my slides. You'll have the slides up here, and then it felt comfortable just to be in my little laptop. But
Yeah.
someone pointed out to me that some of leadership wanted to talk to me and ask me things, but it didn't feel like I was open. So making eye contact is pretty critical when presenting to that audience, and also allowing, um, setting a meeting with enough time, because people are going to want to share their own piece. So probably, you have to take in mind who's there, maybe an hour, but it's not going to be a fast meeting, depending on what you're presenting. So those are other things. And, they don't want to read your white paper. You don't need to go into a lot of detail about the particular machine learning model and what features you use necessarily. It's basically give some background, a general idea of what you did, and the issues involved, of course, and basically what can we do? How can make it actionable? So they have takeaways, and uh, in just a few slides. Definitely don't like weigh people down with like 30 slides.
Mm.
So it's not a dissertation defense. And even with my dissertation defense, my once I did my proposal, my advisor said, when you defend, don't go into all the detail about the models. I talked about the model, the features, things I cleaned up. I wanted to talk about everything, and I think I started putting people to sleep with all that. So it's like not everyone wants to hear, like you said, all those details. It's almost like get to the point.
Hmm.
And it's not a knock against your work at all. It's that audience. We want to hear the bottom line in a way.
When you write like an academic thesis, you're also sharing out like limitations in the research and just kind of citing things that might be questionable. Are you doing that as well? Like at the end of your presentation, like, by the way, here are some things that we're also keeping in mind.
Um, for when presenting to the executives, I don't necessarily share that. Now, my management, people that are managing me, they are aware of this. But by the time I'm presenting, here are things that we've found. Here's the issue. Here are recommendations. I'm not really talking much about the limitations with that group, unless they want to know. So the people that need to know that, they know that we've had issues with this. There's limitations. We only can obtain this type of data. But by the time I'm presenting, because that group, the C-suite, they're not really involved in that process.
That's really, really good advice. Thank you, Angela. I want to ask you about going forward with your second master's degree. And I'm curious also about your family and friends' reactions, because you already worked so hard with your bachelor's degree and then getting your master's in public administration. And most don't even go for a master's. And now you're going for a second master's in information technology. And I'm curious about your reaction from family and friends. Like, what, Angela, you're going to go for another master's degree?
So during that time, I'm glad you asked. During that time, I had my public administration degree, but I wasn't really working in any sort of field that, I was doing odd jobs just to kind of stay afloat. This was like 2012, 2013. And so I thought, okay, I think I can leverage my background, and I think I can do something in technology. I did a long internship at the labs, but then I moved away. Outside of national laboratories, Sandia Labs and the work they did wasn't applicable anywhere else. So I was out there just trying to survive. And so I wanted to go into technology. I read some things about it. I thought, this is work that I have done, and this is work I think I can do. But when talking to friends and family, they were like, you're wasting your money. It will be a risk. Another degree is not going to help you. Mm. And so I got a lot of pushback. I pretty much had zero support at that time in my life around any sort of aspiration. So it was a challenging time. But I felt that I could, if I just pushed through it, I think that I could end up in a place where I'd be happy. Also, around that time, we had a bit of a economic downturn. So there were a lot of like new grads that were just looking for work and they couldn't find anything either. So 2010, 11, 12, 13 was challenging. In 2013, I felt like things were starting to go back up and be, there was more options. But I was pretty much halfway done with the program at that time, so I continued on, graduated in 2014. And by that time, when I was applying for jobs and getting offers, they were all data analysis jobs. So I feel like 2014 was like the time in which data analysis started to pick up speed. And so every time I got an offer, it was for the same type of role. So I thought, yeah, this sounds great. I'm going to give this a try. And I love it. So I gave it a try. It's everything that I like. I like investigation. I'm doing that every day with data. So, yeah, the IT degree was just a leap of faith. I was just really, I was interested in technology, but I just really didn't know what else to do at that time. And was trying to just direct my future somewhere. And I knew I had things I can build off of. So it was a matter of luck and timing. When people say, well, did you choose this degree to go specifically in this field? And I didn't. I didn't know data analysis was a field at that time, like 2011 and 2012 when I started. Had no idea.
I love that you pushed through, because when confronted with discouragement or not getting support for a career field or a path, academic path you're taking, it can be very hard to keep going when you have like close friends and family encouraging not to do that path, because you're like, you already got a degree, just stick with that, go find a good job, and let your career will take time, just kind of like focus on that. But you were very driven and very interested in this other area. And I'm curious about what kept you going when you didn't have support to keep going.
I was faced with a lot of adversity, and I felt like it was the only thing at that time that made me happy. Was learning every day, and the students were all enthusiastic because the students in that program were already working in the field as software engineers, IT specialists, and so they were excited. They were showing me things they were working on. A fellow student showed me all the things he did with his Raspberry Pi, and it just made me so happy. So in a way, I was able to drown all that negativity out, and I focused on that one thing that made me happy every day, which was studying and learning and seeing how everyone else was so enthusiastic about what they were doing with technology.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like people when they're faced with adverse situations, you're testing their character, and I think that was a test of mine. And I guess I proved that you can be faced. I can be faced with a really awful situation, and there may not be a lot of positives in my life, but I can push through it. But I just need to find that one thing that makes me happy. I can get through this.
I think that's beautiful, and I love just like your passion for wanting to keep growing, want to keep learning, and then pursuing those things that are making you happy. And part of that path has been moving into this PhD program. And before we jump into that, I would love to talk with you about your advice for those data scientists or those who are interested in getting into a kind of data science PhD program. What would be some advice you'd tell them before jumping in on how to prepare themselves, or what they should know before pursuing a PhD in a data science type field?
Okay, well, so what I would recommend is first find out if data science, data analytics is really the field that you would like to work in. Ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And a PhD program will not be for the faint of heart. You'll be spending a lot of your personal time studying, writing, reading, writing code, and first assess what you're truly looking for. Also, do some self-learning. Build some projects of your own, because going into a PhD program, it would be useful if, one, you already work in the field, or two, you already have some sort of experience, because just starting that degree out with no experience, biomedical informatics, I think I would have been pretty hurting. But since I was already working in data analysis, and especially in a health-related field for several years, uh, I felt like I was able to apply everything I learned in courses directly into my everyday work. So uh, assess what you're really looking for, and also start working on some projects, getting familiar with some data science methodology, data analysis, before starting that program. Also assess if you really want, if you feel the value would be worth it for you, because I don't know what those courses would cost, what a degree program would cost, but I think it's an investment, and only the person can decide if that investment is truly worth it for them. I think in a way, you will get out what you put in.
Mm.
So I like to utilize free resources as much as possible. And that only made my time in the PhD program that much more enjoyable and stronger. I think I was a stronger candidate because I did all this work up front.
What advice do you have for those who maybe they want to keep learning, they want to keep growing, they are maybe very interested in doing a advanced degree or getting a degree in data science, but the cost associated with it, the financial cost, it's like they can't. They don't have the financial resources to do it. They're looking for like, well, what sort of curriculum or things I can do myself to kind of learn some of this stuff through like online training. I was wondering like what sorts of maybe online classes or things would you say would be good introductions to kind of get people started if they don't have the financial resources to go to a college right now?
And honestly, if you can't necessarily afford a degree, there are so many resources online. You can spend years of your life just learning. So I would recommend proficiency in, Python or R. I know there's a Python versus R debate. I use R in my current work, but I've used Python for other work. Learning how to program in either or language. That's first. Learn SQL. So you also need that, because most companies will have a database system, I hope. So definitely learn Python or R and SQL. Knowing mathematics beyond calculus. So in school, you'll take calculus 1 or calculus 2, but also there's linear algebra, which I think that you need to know, because a lot of machine learning algorithms are based upon that and statistics. So linear algebra, if you haven't taken calculus, take calculus 1, 2, maybe 3. And I think that's offered in like Khan Academy. So, or even you can watch YouTube videos, or you can find a book at your, I think your library, a calculus book, linear algebra book. Start going through some of the problems. So statistics, you have to know statistics. You have to, if you've taken like undergraduate level statistics, I think that's fairly good. So they call it Statistics 1, Statistics 101 at UNM. I think there's a 102. Basically, I would recommend taking as many statistics courses as possible, because the information is used all throughout data science. So the foundation is mathematics. So programming, mathematics. Now you get into data science, which are the algorithms, which have that math foundation. And there are, let's see, of a course that is a holistic data science course. John Hopkins offers a track program, like it's an R program, but it's called John Hopkins and it's data science. And it's been pretty popular. I have a LinkedIn connection. He's an economist, economist,
Oh, economist.
economist. Oh my gosh, I butchered that. And he said he got so much value out of that program. So something that kind of just walks you through each
Mhm.
phase. And I know that that's not the only one. There's probably a Python track as well on Coursera. So there's just an endless list of things that you can take. But you got to know programming. You need to know statistics. You need to know mathematics beyond calculus, like linear algebra, maybe differential equations. Um, and then there's other nuanced things that are involved. And some have asked me, how do you analyze a data set? And I'm like, how do I answer that? There's a crisp DM process that walks you through the phases,
Mm.
like a data science life cycle, in a way. Start here, and then that's a pretty good place to start. So I would say those are the places I'd start, and I should probably write up a list of things that you should probably learn, things you need to know, as you if you can't afford a degree, you can probably make do and just learn things, kind of pull in your own data science program yourself.
And by the way, I love the lists and things you've been sharing on LinkedIn. You write very, very thoughtful posts. Like
Oh, thanks.
you're educating so many of us on your practice and how people can thrive in data science. So thank you so much for giving back to the data science community. And also, I want to ask you about your volunteer work, because I noticed that, like I said, aside from all of your work and your academic work and continued learning through different online courses, you've done a lot of volunteering and giving back to the community. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about Statistics Without Borders. I'd never heard of that organization before.
Okay, Statistics Without Borders. They are a group of people, I guess, data science statisticians, in which I want to say nonprofit. So organizations can approach them and say, "We need someone to help on this project," and you'll get a message, basically probably sent to everybody. We have this project for this duration of time. Who would like to work on that? So I haven't, during my PhD program, I haven't really been actively involved in that, but I've been a member for several years. And so I think this is a great way to get experience and work on projects, for people that may not necessarily, groups, of course, companies may not necessarily be able to pay you, but these are work things that you can put on your resume, um, and also you gain experience. And the duration, like I said, there are durations attached with it. So different people have varying levels of experience can participate. Some projects have a turnaround of like a few days or a week. So that's probably for someone that is pretty proficient with whatever task they're
Mm.
asking for.
Are there any, over the years, any favorite volunteer projects you've done, or any other organization?
So I worked, as an internship, uh, as an intern, I guess, for the CDC, and they were looking to gain more traction to. Now it's super relevant, but they're looking to gain more traction to their website. So people who, when you type in something through Google, it will direct you to the CDC website that's relevant. And I worked on that for a short period of time, and that
Oh,
was incredibly interesting. Um, so there's all these different things that the CDC did, and that was one thing I had no idea that
that
they did.
is so cool. How did you get involved with the CDC?
So every year there was a call. There was a program, and I am blanking out on the program, but basically, interested students, you have to be a student, can look at a list of things that different governmental agencies are doing, and you can apply. And if then they basically choose whoever they want to work on the projects based on their resume and the degree program the student is in. And so I was chosen for that project
That is
because
super
I
cool.
I applied for
That's
it.
awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, no,
So,
I it's amazing what you find if you just look. like I was looking for something to do, and as a intern project, and that was what I found. And also, when I was working, it was through one of my jobs. I was a contractor for the IHS, Indian Health Service, and they sent out a message saying, "We're looking for students to work on projects. Go to this website." And so I went there, and I was like, "Hey, there's a lot of stuff here. These are things I like and I'm interested in." So just doing some digging, you can find a lot.
I love that. I love that. And actually, that's really good advice. I wanted to ask you about this because one of the questions we've been getting a lot is right now is a very, very difficult time for graduates that are just finishing school, entering the workforce. Right now, a lot of companies have hiring freezes. They're doing remote working. And so it's a very difficult time for those who are looking to just launch their career. And I was wondering, so the question we're getting a lot is like, what do we do? Like, what should we be doing in this during this very difficult time? And I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give somebody who is like finishing their bachelor's, or maybe they're finishing, they went right into master's and finishing their master's degree. They're looking to start their career, but now like doors are shut, like hiring freezes are in place, and advice you'd give them right now.
Well, it's challenging, and no student wants to hear, no one's really hiring. But what you can do is, if you want to go into data science and or data analytics, it's slightly different. Data analyst jobs are slightly different from data scientist jobs, but under the same umbrella. You can start learning. You can start building your portfolio, because if I haven't really met students that have a portfolio, but you want to have one. So with all the things that you learned or things that you're learning, start putting it into a repository. Set up your GitHub account and put your work in there and display it on some sort of GitHub Pages is free. Display your work, because that's your business card. Employers really want to see proof that you can do this. Even though you have a degree, they want to see it. Having a degree, honestly, I don't want to say it's not enough, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can solve data issues for them. It doesn't necessarily mean you have experience, but a portfolio shows that you have the experience and that you have worked on these things. So that would be my advice. Start learning, put your work somewhere, display it in a format that is attractive. And when you do start interviewing, you have proof that you've worked on projects, and you can walk the interviewer through those projects. And it is so interesting for them because they can actually see what you've worked on. They can ask you questions. You could talk about your visualizations. I highly recommend every student have a portfolio.
That's really, really good advice. And that's one of those projects, like once you have your portfolio, that you can just keep updating all throughout your career, keep track of all the things you've done.
Add to it, change things out. It's for me, when I put together a portfolio, it was a absolute game changer. So it was almost like you're guaranteed someone's going to offer you a job when you come in there prepared to your interview, prepared with examples, show them your portfolio projects, or pick one. Also learn that business. So before an interview, learn what they do. Think about how you could potentially help them. So then it's like, oh, this person's very interested. So there are things you can do in this downturn. So when you do start getting interviews, you are ready.
Really, really good advice. Angela, I want to thank you so much for being on Data Talk, sharing part of your story, sharing just a ton of encouragement for those right now who are looking for work, and also just your growth mindset and just your continual drive to want to keep learning. That's very, very inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been super enjoyable.
Thank you. For those that want to connect with you or follow your journey, what's the best way for them to do that?
I am on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So find Angela Baltes on LinkedIn. My Medium article is right up front in my featured section. So, and I also have my portfolio website in my featured section, but LinkedIn is the best place if you want to connect with me and to read my posts. And I like memes, so I'll throw a meme in there just to make people laugh.
Cool. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Data Talk. We share out new episodes every single week, and you can find the full catalog of previous episodes as well as YouTube videos by going to the Experian news blog. The URL is just experian.com/datatalk. And as always, we love hearing from our community, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future shows, please reach out. You can find us on Twitter at Experian Data Lab, or you can always reach out to me directly. My email is michael.delgado@experian.com. Take care, and we'll chat next week.